All right, so now we're live streaming. Welcome everyone and welcome Lisa. Thank you for taking the time today to tell us more about remote product management. And Lisa has been in a past life facilitator and coach. So she went from being an employee to a product freelancer and now back to a full-time product manager at Finiata. And she's going to share a lot of interesting concepts, including Panda.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So I'll let you take over from here.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll just quickly share my screen. And you should be all able to see my little presentation now. Awesome. Cool, great. I'll just open the chat window because I have a few questions so I can see your answers in there. All right, yeah, we're going to talk about remote work. And I've been working remotely for a while, for a couple of years now, with different setups of remote teams. So I feel like I know a little bit about it, but now that everyone is remote, some things have changed. And I would like to tell you about those things. So this is me. Obviously, you can probably tell from the color because it's my hair color. And I work with some people here in Berlin. But I also have some colleagues in Warsaw. So we've been remote from the get-go, but with 2 offices. So a lot of people know this kind of setup. You have 2 offices and teams mixed with people from both offices. This means most of the time there's a lot of talk between the people in each office, and then only like a tiny little bridge whenever you have a meeting where everyone talks to everyone. So that doesn't happen very often. So now that we're all remote, we have more communication than we had before. Like my team got so much better now that everyone is remote, which kind of sounds like, wait, we're in a pandemic. How did your team get better? So I want to share with you what we did to make this actually work for all of us. I think one of the most important things is to make sure that you communicate. And if you're not in person, your communication has to be 10x more intentional. What does that mean? That does not necessarily mean you have to have more meetings. This is a common misconception, and people feel they have to check in on people more. They have to make sure everyone's doing their work when they're remotely. I hope no one here works anywhere where they think remote work means that you're going to be lazy at home. But those concerns have been around. So generally, I would encourage you, before you start a meeting with any of your team members, ask yourself if your meeting could be an email. We tend to kind of think we need to have face-to-face communication at the same time, synchronously, to make sure everyone's on the same page. But being on the same page doesn't mean it has to happen at the same time. So maybe if it's a status update, send a status update, because meetings fill up a lot of time in our calendars, and doing all of them remotely can be a little exhausting. And now we're talking about the panda. So quick little story. When I was little, the panda was my favorite animal, and I collected stuffed pandas. They did not look super cool, but I had a lot of them. So a panda is something that just kind of comes to my mind easily, I would say, because I used to be surrounded by so many of them. And when I was thinking about what is actually important in a good meeting, what makes a meeting really good, I came up with Panda, because they're cute, they're cuddly, everyone loves pandas, and everyone loves acronyms. That's just the law. I didn't make that up. That's just how it is. I'm going to quickly tell you what Panda actually means. It stands for purpose, agenda, note-taking, decisions, and action items. So if you want your meetings to go from sad panda to happy panda, make sure you have those ingredients and communicate them well. Manage expectations beforehand. Send out your invite and include your purpose in there. What do you all want to get out of that meeting? Why are you having this meeting? And add an agenda so people can actually decide if they want to join or not. This way, you allow people to, especially in product teams, you have developers there that they need their maker time. So maybe you want to let them know about a meeting and give them the option to join if they want to. But if they don't know what's going to happen, how are they supposed to know? Another little story. I used to be famous or infamous, not really sure, at one of the companies I worked at when I was in Toronto for not accepting invites that didn't have an agenda. That had actually never happened. I don't think I've ever actually declined an invite because of that. But I had told people that I will not accept meetings if they don't have an agenda. And somehow everyone just knew that I wouldn't do that. So it never actually happened. I never got an invite without an agenda. So I don't know, maybe spread a rumor about yourself and meeting agendas to get better invites. Right, so remember the Panda: purpose, agenda, note-taking, decision, and action items. Note-taking is important because especially when we're all remote and not everyone can be at every meeting, and distractions are everywhere. Like, as you can see, I have my cat bed over there, so I have my kitty cat to distract me. People have pets, children, their significant other people they live with. There's so many things happening around us. Take notes of your meetings if someone can't make it or if they get distracted during the meeting, and share those. Just make sure everyone's on the same page. Decisions and action items are things you hopefully want to get out of your meetings, because if there's no decisions to be made and no actions to be taken, maybe your meeting could have been an email. And also make sure that you write down the decisions that were taken and the action items, assign those to people, put deadlines beside them so that you don't just talk about something for an hour on video and then everybody forgets about it. All right. And there's one thing that doesn't sound like rocket science, but it makes such a huge difference. So I have a quick question for you, and maybe you know the answer. It's very cheesy. How much does a polar bear weigh? If you know the answer, you can put it in the chat. Anyone? They weigh enough to break the ice. So that's kind of what you want to do in the beginning of meetings. 100 kilograms, probably enough to break the ice. What you want to do is use little icebreakers, use something fun in the beginning of the meeting. Oh, you didn't get the question? I'm sorry. How much does a polar bear weigh? Enough to break the ice. You're like, oh God, yeah, okay. So like do something in the beginning to get to know each other better, to just have some fun. Allow yourselves to be silly. We have in the past used a bunch of different things, like a quick little drop an emoji that says something unexpected about yourself, or, you know, find a GIF that expresses how you feel right now. Just fun little silly things. They only take a couple of minutes and they help everyone just kind of get into the mood of the meeting. So whatever happened before kind of stays in the past, and now you're like fresh and motivated for a new meeting. Maybe you just came out of the 10th meeting of the day and you're just kind of tired, and icebreakers kind of can energize you. Or you can use them to check in on people, because right now everyone's in a pandemic, so the moods might not be the greatest. And a little thing that we've been doing in our team is the mood-o-meter. Just really we do voting. So you don't even know who said what, but you get a feel for the room. So we'll let everyone vote on the little emoji that represents their feelings the best, how they're feeling in that moment. And then you already know am I in the room with a bunch of people that are super happy and in a great mood? Or am I in the room with a bunch of people that feel kind of a little lost maybe? And you can change your facilitation style accordingly. You can maybe make the meeting a little shorter, or maybe take a moment to talk about it. My team, like, we've got so much closer because when we do a check-in, in the beginning, everyone's just like, yeah, I'm good, it's fine, let's just move on. But now this is actually the part where everyone's just like, well, you know what? This is terrible. I hate this situation. This is annoying. Someone literally said, I love my kids, but not all the time. This is so hard. And so people starting to get very open and comfortable with each other because we do check in regularly. If you do check-ins or anything that you usually don't do, or even things you do, everything takes more time if you do it online in a video chat. For some reason, there's always at least one person where the internet doesn't work. So you gotta wait. They're like, drop off, come back, and you're like, okay, now let's get started. Then the screen share doesn't work. Then the other tools you're using don't work. There's always something happening. If you try out new things, because collaboration in an office is easy. You have a whiteboard, you stand in front of it, you draw on it. Easy. If you want to do that online, you need an online whiteboard. You have to see if people can actually draw on it. Maybe if they don't draw, can we use sticky notes? How does this even work? Do I need to sign up? What's happening? So there's always things that cost more time. And that's okay if you kind of account for it beforehand. Now I'm going to ask you, does this make you a little nervous? There's already 99 emails, and you probably have one eye on the icon on your computer while you're doing any kind of meeting. And then this happens. And you're like, oh no, there's another one. I need to answer this right now. I am taking a wild guess that most of you are not saving babies. So probably your email can wait until the end of the meeting. I'm guessing you've all taken a vacation and nothing burned down, at least not completely to the ground. So make sure everybody else, but also you, turn off all notifications while you're in a meeting, because it is so easy to get distracted. You see, like, maybe the icon flare up, or you see, like, you know, at the top in the corner, you get the message. So you actually start reading the message while someone else is talking, and then you didn't hear what they just said. It's great if someone's taking notes, but maybe just try to listen and get the distractions out of the way if you can. Turning off notifications is a fairly easy way to do that. And one thing I've already touched on a little bit is being very honest and open with each other. So this is very obviously a hard hat for safety. So what I'm trying to show here is you need some psychological safety. You have to make people feel safe to actually benefit from these kinds of things, from checking in, from making sure everyone's there and present. Because if you don't feel good and safe in your team, you will end up not engaging, and it's very, very easy to be disengaged in a video chat. So, you know, you turn off your camera, you turn off your microphone. I don't know if you're even still there. So if I have a meeting with my team where I need engagement with them, I could lose them if they don't feel comfortable sharing ideas, sharing opinions. This is not only true for remote work, but it comes out even more in remote work. Okay, so now my cat just came back to hang out with me. Great, and this is actually, I did not train him to do this, but it is a pretty good segue to the next one. Have some fun. Just not only the icebreaker, just generally have fun in your meetings. We usually take some time to just chit chat, to talk about silly things. The other day, we did, as an icebreaker, we used Never Have I Ever, which is a game that usually people use as a drinking game. So basically one person says, never have I ever. done this or that, and then the rest of them, like whoever has done that thing, takes a shot. While we do not do shots at work, we use this, and one of the things that came out was never have I ever broken production. And then we noticed that we all had a story to share, how somebody broke production. Some cases were quite severe, other cases were more just a bit silly, but we had so much fun, and we didn't get to one part of the meeting because of it. But hey, who cares? We had a great time. We were laughing a lot. We were bonding over this, and sometimes we just need to take some time to be silly together. And I want to play one tiny game with you, because that is something that we've also used to be silly, is something that we call Guess the Movie. Guess the Movie is literally, you describe a movie title with emojis only. Maybe some of you can guess these titles. Give it a try in the chat. We started this in one of our meetings just within our team. Then we took it to Slack because we had so much fun that we wanted to continue doing, like, playing it. Yes, Marcus. And because we had so much fun playing it in the meeting, we took it to Slack and started a thread. So basically we said, okay, we started with one movie, and then said whoever guesses first gets to do the next one. And so it started going, and then people from other teams joined our team channel on Slack just to play with us. And they asked me, like, can we maybe also participate? This is so fun. Yes, of course. Of course you can. And this is the thing, like, it's different. A lot of people don't take the time because we are always believing in this idea of being productive the whole time, but you cannot be productive the whole time. Like, you need to take a step back from things and take a quick little break. And so, yeah, have some fun in between. And one last thing, you get to say everything several times. Like, you say it, and they say it again and again, and then 2 more times, and then another time. By the time you feel like a broken record, that's usually just enough communication about whatever it is you need to communicate to your team, be it goals or, I don't know, how many bugs do we have? What did the user say that I just interviewed? There are a lot of options of things you want to communicate with your team. So make sure you do it again and again and again and again. This is also something that is not only true for remote work, but even more so for remote work. And now come on, last slide. There we go. And that is the conclusion of this. And I'm happy to hear your questions now. If you want to read anything, because if I share my presentation, it's going to be a bunch of fun pictures in it. I do have articles out that describe these things, which I'm happy to share. All right. If you feel comfortable, you just unmute yourself and ask a question, or write in the chat.
Hey, Lisa. My name's Kim. I'm from Cape Town. Client engagement, that's a big one for me. Specifically today, I was actually doing a demo for a client, and I was met with dead silence. And I mean, you know, I kind of say to them, I can build your product, but I need you to engage with me to confirm that this is what you wanted. So just how do you kind of deal with that and combat that from a client perspective, not so much the team perspective?
Yeah. Most of the time, people either have been burnt in the past for speaking up and engaging, or they are just generally not used to it at all. What I like to do in those situations is to kind of preface whatever I do with explaining to them, I'm like, I have a very different way of working. Some things might feel a little uncomfortable and weird to you. you might not be used to it. That is okay. If I have the option, I will make people literally like do the silliest things, because that usually loosens everyone up. One of my favorite things for that is, it doesn't work that well on camera, but you can still kind of make it work, is like full body rock, paper, scissors. Where you just have everyone just be like, okay, like you need to come up with stuff. So like, you get like your scissors or something and like your rock, and people have to be, I don't know, either they can be in teams or everyone can play on their own, or you do little breakout rooms depending on the group setup, and just let them play. And by the end of it, everyone just feels very, I don't know, people are happy, they laugh, endorphins flow through your body. So that can actually get people more comfortable because they've all just been really silly. And I've done this with big corporations and people in like very old school conservative publishing houses. Not everyone was super happy afterwards. I did get the feedback that some people didn't like it. But I would say 80% actually engaged with me during the workshop we did after that.
Well, that's actually the challenge that I'm facing, because the client in question is one of the biggest banks in South Africa. So think super corporate, super, rigid. And, I was like, we've built a great user-friendly system, call me biased, but you can't tell me that you got this first time around and you have no questions. Like, I'm sorry, I just don't believe that. And it's just trying to strike that balance between being firm with a corporate client, but also being compassionate to a degree about, the situation that we're in. So I was just interested to hear your experience in that side of things.
Sometimes it can also be helpful to kind of try a different medium, basically. So if you just ask them questions and they don't say anything, because that happens sometimes, people are just kind of like, get out your online whiteboard and let them write sticky notes. And if they're all anonymous, usually people will be a bit happier to share their thoughts and questions. That can be a first step to actually get it going. I've also had people not really do that. So I would say like 2 sticky notes in a group of 10 people. Then if that happens, I don't really think anything within a group setting would work, to be honest. I think then you have to actually do one-on-ones with everyone individually.
That's some great feedback. Thank you.
Oh, of course. Anyone else? Guess no more questions.
Hello guys, can you see me?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Nice to meet you, Lisa, and
nice to meet you too.
All our attendants here. It's already night in my country, Kazakhstan.
Oh, wow, okay.
It's great. Anyway, I just have just one question. I think during this pandemic, a lot of changes happen, especially with plants, and a lot of, in my company, a lot of restructuring going on also. And I work with outside technical partners who are doing products for us, and I manage from the company relationship with them. And maybe you can share your experience, how you maintain motivation inside the team, because I'm like sometimes a guy who bring bad news and bring bad news sometimes every week. And
yeah,
and I sometimes I feel really awful about that. So it's yeah, so it would be great to hear from you your experience, maybe.
I think it kind of depends what kind of bad news, but generally I would say just be very, very honest. I think telling the truth, as simple as it sounds, it can be very powerful. in the sense that even if it's bad news, like don't try to make it sound good. You know, I mean, like sometimes people will be like, yeah, well, you know, like this is an opportunity. Okay, you're fine. What? So I don't know what you're doing. I hope you're not firing. You don't have to fire people, but you know, just being very honest and explaining and giving context, not just being like, here's the bad news. Okay, bye. But giving people context. And also if it's an ongoing relationship, kind of, you know, still check in with them if that's a possibility, because I don't know, I can maybe give an example from something not quite the same, but I did have a team member that was not much of a team player. And we didn't have to fire them or anything, but I did have to deliver bad news in the sense of like giving feedback and having that person actually move off the team into another team, different area, for different reasons. And what we did is we talked about the context and the why. So it wasn't just like, I just gave you like negative feedback about some things and now you're moving to a new team. So let's unpack this and talk about that. I didn't kick you out of the team or anything, but here is why this makes sense in the context of this and those things in the company. So that can sometimes help. I think in a remote setting, there is not much difference to that. You do want to talk one-on-one. I personally prefer people having their videos on, but I would never force anyone, because sometimes like you don't really know the other person's circumstances, their reasons for not having the video on. So, but yeah, kind of looking at each other and having as much of a human connection as possible while not being in the same room. I hope that kind of answered your question.
Yeah, in some sense, I mean, I just work with, I mean, not I didn't mean about firing people, but sometimes we just either postpone some projects we had to, or taken into account a situation with unknown, a lot of uncertainties. And sometimes just management, because I work in big corporations, sometimes management also just takes some pause to maybe just to think about to get maybe communication with another level higher. And it just because there are so many levels, and it's also at the end sometimes it's not easy to understand in which direction to go.
Yeah.
And also it's a problem to maintain good relationships. Yeah. So and when it's great in a like in a small company, in startup, when you have a open relationships and quite a lot of trust. But in corporations, sometimes it's not easy to understand which dynamics going on around you.
Yeah, yeah. There's lots of politics, right?
That's half politics, and sometimes it happen. And I try to be consistent and open with all partners, but I get kicked a little bit this month about it. So I mean, I got negative feedback that I'm just open with our partners, because rumors going on the market sometimes, and they come back and say that. So what happened, you guys? And with somebody telling me that bad news sometimes, because yeah, that's the situation. Just I guess you understand.
Yeah. And I still think truth and context can be very helpful, and maybe checking in on people regularly outside of the bad news. Just asking them like, hey, how are you doing? How's life? What's up? And are there any things I can help you with? Have you heard any rumors? Maybe just be a bit more proactive about it. Have you heard any rumors that you feel you need some clarification from me on? Are there things that you feel like are a waste of time in our relationship? those kinds of questions. And if you do that regularly, you actually build a relationship with anyone. And if you can, try to share stories. That sounds probably a bit bizarre, but it is so much easier to connect with people through stories. So sometimes maybe you want to tell them something. If you can use a story for that, it can be a bit tricky, especially with negative news. That's probably something just to try out. That can help too. Because even though we're all like, let's be data-driven, numbers, humans actually prefer stories.
I see. Yeah, thank you. It's very helpful, I think.
Cool. Maybe I also have a question. Lisa, first of all, thanks for this great presentation, super cool visuals, and I especially love the icebreaker recommendations. If we were talking about meetings, I think the thing that I struggle the most with, and I don't have solved for myself yet, is that when you're setting up a meeting, you think of maybe a handful of people, but then this meeting request gets passed around and your circle of people whom you want to talk with gets larger and larger, and people whom you don't necessarily want to be stakeholders in that discussion become stakeholders. And since you have a big round of people sitting around of you, especially in the virtual world, the overall involvement and engagement in the meeting decreases. And then, but everybody still has this intrinsic motivation to say something, because that's also a deeply human need to participate and to contribute. And then,
be heard.
And be heard, exactly. And the results that come out of this are not necessarily the way how you would want to move forward.
Yeah, yes. Sometimes it's good to just kick people out. I'm going to be honest here. Sometimes you can just say, no, I need this small group because this is a working meeting and we cannot have 20 people in this. That is okay to do, even though it feels quite uncomfortable in the moment you do it. The other thing you can do if you don't want to kick anyone out is kind of change the way you do the meeting. So instead of just having a meeting and like brainstorming out loud or doing a round robin or those kinds of things, get yourself an online whiteboard and do note and vote. So everyone just writes their things down on sticky notes. The more people you have, the less time you give them to write things down. The important things will come up first anyways. And you don't want to drown in a bajillion sticky notes. You cluster them and you vote on what's most important. This works for all kinds of settings. Like what are the problems we're looking into? Like sometimes you already have kind of a problem statement and you want to go one level deeper. Maybe it's about, hey, what do our customers think? And then suddenly 20 people are like, I'm the expert on the customer, I need to tell you. And out of those things, if you have everyone just writing sticky notes, it's also easy to kind of see the patterns, which can be quite helpful sometimes.
Cool. Love that idea. It also forces participation and not just skepticism. Cool.
And it has everyone heard, even the people that get very, very quiet as soon as there's more than 2 people in a meeting.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Lisa, again. Something similar from the same direction. What I'm doing is like generally I create a Confluence page, generally give the people or team to come up with their thoughts with their time. So if they want to say something, like if they have some better ideas, so that everybody is heard, and then based on the outcome, like what they think, kind of summarizing them in a meeting agenda. Hey, this is what we need to take a decision on. So please come prepared for the discussions, and definitely those are already said what they want to say, and if it's only a matter of taking the decision, so only the key stakeholders are in the meeting. So in that way, one of the things which I would like to get it from you is like, how do you manage those kind of getting inputs from everybody, and also how early and how important sending these agendas are important. Like for example, let's say I'm talking about some user story. Of course, definitely I have to give our developers and all the different team members time to think about. So how do you handle such kind of things? Like if you want to discuss some new topics, how frequently and how much detail do you provide in an agenda? Sometimes agenda can be really very abstract. And like you mentioned in your presentation that you have 99 emails, it's quite easy for team members to ignore that, how important that meeting is. How do you handle that?
Reduce meetings, have less meetings if possible.
Mm-hmm.
Which sounds a bit counterintuitive, but usually if you have less meetings, especially within a team setting, the fewer meetings you have, the more people understand the ones that we do have are actually important. And by every time asking myself, could this have been an email? So status updates and those kinds of things. A lot of smaller discussions. We will, have this agreement in our team that we start discussions on Slack, and only once more people got involved and we feel the need to actually sit down and talk about this, we will then have a meeting. So we already, like, everyone on the team is already primed for the conversations that are about to happen. And often we also have meetings that come out of our standard meetings. So we have 2 meetings each week. In the beginning, we have our Monday commitments, where we commit to whatever we want to do in the week. We check our OKRs. We check our health metrics. We look at like what's on the agenda for the next 4 weeks and what are we actually focusing on this week. Sometimes, and then we choose the tickets from our backlog to put in our to-do column in our Kanban board. Sometimes we notice, well, like, we want to do this thing, but our tickets are not actually ready. And if we don't have enough time within that meeting, we might either extend it or set up another meeting. And then it's always everyone's optional unless you have stakes in it. So if it's like, if we're talking about some backend architecture, the backend person will be there, but the front-end person might not, and that's okay. Or if the QA person says, yo, you all don't test well enough, we need to talk about this, then everyone has to be there. So it kind of depends. And then we have an end of week celebration where we also do retrospectives and talk about how our meeting culture works. And when I first started working with that team, the number one thing that always got voted highest and had the most sticky notes is we have too many meetings. Meetings are terrible. Every retro, too many meetings. What are we doing? And literally last week in our retro, in the part of the things that we like and that we should definitely keep, were a bunch of sticky notes about meetings. They said they're very engaging, they're fun, they're great. We always use visual collaboration tools in our meetings. So we found that really, really helpful.
Oh, okay, thank you. And coming to the retrospective, how do you align, like you talked about your Panda, the decision making and the action items. Let's say those decisions are usually not product related. How do you handle it separate, kind of Kanban, or is it related to product usually, or how do you prioritize them? And what I mean to say is, like, you have a product goal and product priorities. On the other hand, you have more kind of logistic and more team related problems. How do you combine them, or how do you tackle them and taking it more responsible? For example, you're on a sprint. If you're doing some sprints and your team is focused on delivering that, and definitely you don't have any clear path of, okay, in the middle of the sprint or end of the sprint, so that goes to the next sprint, or does that have to how do you tackle the priority of such action items?
So all of our retro action items are things. So we have our product goals where we iterate on the product, make the product better. And then we have the things that come out of retros to make the team better and iterate all the teamwork, right? Usually we kind of try to stick to 1 to 3. Yeah, 1 to 3 action items from retros. We just changed them from bi-weekly to weekly. So they're a bit shorter and the action items are a bit smaller. And we're literally, so because of reduced hours, our work week is actually Tuesday to Thursday at the moment. Some people work Monday, some people don't. So basically at the end of the week, at the end of the working day, which is our core times where everyone has to be around, which is Thursdays 2 to 3, which would, if we were in a normal setup, be on Fridays, is our end of week celebration, where we also do the retro, and then basically starts as soon as the new week starts, we start incorporating these things. There's different stuff in there. I think I think 2 weeks ago, so we tried something where we said we want to get better at giving people feedback, because that came out of our quarterly team canvas review, that we had said that feedback is important to us, and then we didn't really follow through. So we said we have to do something about this. So someone had the idea, well, we just match up 2 people and they have to give each other feedback this week, because we wanted to like do this more often, normalize it, etc. And then we didn't really do it. So we did the matching, and then nothing really happened. So the week later, we were like, okay, we tried this, didn't work. Try something else. And now we have trophies for teammates in our Friday meeting, where we just give each other trophies for something that we appreciate, which is also a form of feedback. And we said, we're going to start with that and use that for now. So this is kind of, we kind of iterate on a weekly basis on these kind of processes, behaviors, teamwork, things. Thank you for, no, okay, you're moving again. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to quickly read that follow-up question there about dealing with extremely dominant developers without risking the product. But also I don't want to talk over anyone else who wants to chat. So thought I would maybe pop my additional question here first. All right. Dominant developers, yes. I already mentioned him earlier. We're actually really good now, but I've had the hardest time, and I literally never have had such a hard time with a developer ever before, ever. I actually reached out to 2 of my former, my tech lead in my last job, and the most senior developer on my team in my job before that. So we're talking 2017 and 2018. So I talked to those people and I was like, hey, you guys, okay, I have this developer and I do not know what to do. I don't know. And as you can probably tell from my presentation, the whole teamwork thing is my thing. So I was lost, so lost. And they didn't really help me, because one of them said, is he paid by the hour? Maybe he's just lazy. I'm like, I don't think that's it, but thanks. And the other one, I don't actually remember what he said exactly, but it was also kind of like, literally what helped was talking to each other. And it's so hard. I do not enjoy giving negative feedback, because I have this urge that everyone should like each other and everything should be harmonious and like happy. Right. And this is one of my big learnings for 2020, where I'm like, I need to learn this. I need to get better at giving people feedback. And once we actually talked and I gave him some feedback in written form, because I was like, I can't even say these things out loud. And I was very, very diplomatic, and like tried my best to give good feedback. So describe behaviors, describe what their behaviors does to my behavior and why this can be problematic. What's the context? How do I perceive things? And so on. And that actually ended up in him reaching out and being like, hey, can we talk about this? Because I have a few questions. And I was like, oh, sure, yeah, totally. Yeah, love to. So I was like, literally, I was so afraid of that meeting. And he had booked 30 minutes and we talked for 2 hours.
Wow.
And now he left the team. He moved to another team, but he literally would like, he just earlier today, he messaged me like a picture of some cats that were like doing crazy stuff and a joke about it. it feels really hard to do, but a lot of the time that's actually the best way forward. Some people don't know what they do and how it affects other team members. They are not aware of those behaviors, so that can help.
Yeah, and I think, Lisa, you hit the nail on the head, is because I'm consistently sitting in a power play and I refuse to engage in this argument in front of the team. I believe it's unprofessional and I'm just not going to go that route. But at the same time, you know, there's a boundary that needs to be set there, because I am the product owner in this context, and you will not dominate me every single time.
Yeah.
But then I need to balance that requirement against, he's quite possibly one of the most brilliant developers I've ever worked with in my career. You know, so it's how do you set that boundary without destroying that brilliance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And I was exactly where you are, because that person's our best front-end developer, but they're also a bit too much in love with perfect code to work in a startup sometimes. I'm like, no, no, we're doing fast right now. We're not doing pretty. I never said it like that, but
I know what you mean.
Get the idea, right?
Yeah.
Let them know that you think this of them.
Yeah. Okay.
Literally, I did that. I was like, yo, you're my best front-end dev. You are so experienced, you know, about this, and that. You're concentrating on refactoring right now because you understand architecture. I don't want to fight with you. I need you by my side, because you're the person that can help you make the best decisions. Exactly.
Yeah.
And show me the person that doesn't like that.
I mean, I'll give you an example where in my product's case, I need to toggle between 4 different user types for demos, and I'm competing with an expiry token as well. So there's quite a knack. And for the one flow, I by accident miscalculated at what stage I needed to switch over, so obviously it broke the flow. And I literally sent him a video and I was like, what am I doing wrong? And I was logged in as the wrong user type. That was the answer. But it proceeded into a, you know, I'm very alarmed that someone at your level does not understand the complete Django authentication flow. And I was like, dude, all you needed to do was tell me I'm logged in as the wrong user. Like, I did not need an attack. And then it proceeded into a, you don't need to be so sensitive. And I'm like, I'm not being sensitive. I'm setting a boundary.
Yeah.
So like that's the kind of behavior that I get from him. But then I get his code. It's on time. It's beautiful. There's no bugs. He delivers it. And I'm like sitting there and I'm like, what do I do?
Yeah. Being an ally to this person and having them being an ally to you, and be like, we have to work together on this, like the two of us together. There is a chance that they are just an asshole.
I do think that's a possibility too.
And it happens. And there are some great articles out there that I've read a while ago about how like these rock star personalities that they think they are the only one that can solve everything. Sometimes you just can't have that kind of person on your team, even though they're the most brilliant developer or most brilliant in whatever area they work in, but they will poison the team. Yeah, it's a tough call to make. Also, maybe something that you can actually do. So I would start definitely with like trying to get on their good side. Maybe try to find something that you have in common. My Dev and I, we both play Dungeons and Dragons. That's so cliche, cool. But like this is our thing. So we're like, at some point when I found out, I was just like, oh, that yeah. That's keep that in mind, cool. And maybe there's something else where you can bond and just kind of see each other as people, and not the roles you're in, and then get to the roles and make those better, like how they work together.
I think it also, just knowing, I think there's a stage where you wonder, is it me? And I think just kind of knowing that someone else has the same problem, because I have I would say 5 years that I've been working in digital, I have never experienced this kind of alpha dominance, or I would almost say narcissistic behavior from a developer before, because I've actually compared it to an abusive relationship at times. Well, not physically, obviously, but it's just the verbal aspect.
Mm.
And I think it's just such a relief to hear that someone else across the world has gone through the same thing that I've gone through, and it's a normal problem to have, not a me problem.
Yeah, it happens. We can definitely chat some more later if you want to.
Cool.
Since we're still live streaming, I don't know in how much detail you want to get.
Definitely not more. Thank you for the reminder.
Yeah, but yeah, feel free to reach out to me maybe on LinkedIn.
Cool.
I think, yeah, I'm just looking over at my presentation down there. Lisa Mo Wagner, that's like where you can find me anywhere, on Twitter, on Medium, on LinkedIn. That was like such a YouTube thing to say too. Like, please like and subscribe and leave some comments down below.
I think we are, I think, Lisa, we are pretty much on time. I think we can, I think Mirella is still on the call, so I would say we can skip the breakout session. And thanks a lot once again for speaking and giving great insights and Panda. It's such a great kind of easy to remember technique. I actually kind of made a small note on it, so it's very easy to remember. So thanks a lot for that. Yeah, and thanks a lot for the participants for joining and asking some interesting conversations. And I look forward to see you guys at our next event. And thanks a lot. Have a nice evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everybody. He's stopping the streaming.